So I work alongside different teams like finance, modeling, economics to analyze whether the bank's allowance model is capturing the right information and leading to effective credit management. But I believe particularly one should be comfortable with data because you're dealing with highly sensitive data in banks. So even if you don't have financial knowledge, at least you can read about the news and current affairs, for example, and see how the economy is getting impacted. The interviewer understands it's not that they only look for people with a lot of experience. They look for people who want to excel in the same domain. Don't just share everything to the interviewer, like like in those words. No, just leave a little mystery behind it. Like even you should not cover everything about yourself, but it should be convincing enough to let the interviewer know that you have a story to share in person, and they should look for there is absolutely no micromanagement. Everyone is respected equally and age never comes in between.
Hi, Richa. Thank you so much for giving us your time and talking to us today. You are the first guest I have for risk management. So I'm really excited to have this conversation and hope you are excited as well.
Hi, Raza. Thank you so much for having me. And definitely, I'm very much excited and to share my views and learn from you as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Let us start by your background, Richa. Can you please tell us what is it that you're doing currently, your job designation, and a little bit about your background as well?
Sure. So I'm currently working as a Senior Analyst with Bank of Montreal in the credit risk department. Here in Toronto, I completed my MBA from Schulich last year in October, and I've been working full time since then. I also completed a diploma in Canadian Culture, Communication, and Leadership from York University alongside. And before moving to Canada for my education, I was working with EY in the domain of quality and risk management. I worked there for almost like 5 years back in India, and I did my undergraduate in BCom honors from Delhi University.
Wow. So yeah. That's a rare background considering you are from India and not an engineer.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm sure you or most of your classmates would have been from an engineering background. So you had quite a lot of experience before you decided to pursue your MBA, that too in the domain in which you are working currently. So what was it that decided that prompted you to pursue an MBA after 5 years of work experience?
Oh, I love the point that you brought about, not coming from an engineering background, because I hail from a family of engineers, and I'm the only one who took an extra effort to do something which is not the usual thing in my family. So yeah, thank you, at least for noticing it and making me feel good about it again.
So was that the rebel teenager who decided to go against the family, or was it something else?
I think not a rebellious nature, but more of my love for adventure.
Yeah. Fine. Anyway, so I interrupted you. Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah. So I believe my undergraduation in commerce combined with almost my 5 years of work experience in EY back in India did equip me with the technicalities of the business functions and there. So after getting promoted to a senior level rank in EY, I realized that was the right time for me to take a leap in my career and gain some leadership skills and business managerial acumen. And I knew that that an international MBA would offer it to me. And so basically that was the reason why I thought, let's just take a leap in my career and apply for an MBA school. And once I got the admit, I just resigned and went ahead with my plans. Yeah.
Sure. And when you were thinking about taking MBA and coming to Canada, or maybe you would have pursued some other countries and colleges as well, what was it about the Schulich School of Business which made you apply to it and then finally accept that offer?
Yeah, so I'd probably divide it in two parts because both are very important, to me. So I was always firm about completing my MBA from a top-notch international school. And while finalizing on countries, I realized that Canada was the most secure option available to me at that time. I knew that it would not only give me an opportunity to live a high standard life, but also open a lot of benefits and opportunities to kind of conveniently explore while being a student, or irrespective basically irrespective of my immigration status here. So whether I have my PR or I have my citizenship, it doesn't really matter. I knew that I could work for a couple of years and then see if I can make my way through it. So I made it. So at first I made the decision about Canada, studying in Canada, and once I was firm about the decision, I started looking for the top-notch schools here. And then I always aimed at Schulich for a couple of reasons, right? So for starting with, its vast alumni base that it has, that it is famous for the commendable pedagogy, and definitely the ROI that can easily be validated through any of the direct or indirect sources. And most importantly, I believe Schulich offers a very rich and diverse peer network to work with, which actually makes the learning process very challenging yet very productive. So I wanted to work with the right set of people, and I believe Schulich would offer me. And I sincerely believe that an MBA degree from a recognized business school will not only enhance your personality, but will also give you a recognized profile as well in the market. And Schulich being one of the top-rated schools in Canada, I think one should definitely take pride in being called a Schuligan, and I wanted to be one. So yeah, so that was my decision-making process.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that to us. And now let's dig into risk management. So for our listeners, could you please explain what is it that you do? What is risk management and how do you do it?
Sure. So in an enterprise-wide level perspective, or in layman's terms, so there are various kinds of risks that the financial institutions basically face. Could be reputational, could be operational, could be liquidity, and there are risks related to credit. I am particularly dealing with credit risk analysis and reporting for BMO, so I can give probably a brief about it.
Sure.
So in credit risk, the lenders, in my case BMO, would want to analyze the credit worthiness of the borrowers before lending any sum, and that's a normal course that even a normal person would do, right? So in bank, basically, the process extends beyond the credit analysis of the borrower alone, because there are other factors that could influence the credit worthiness of the borrower, and that could be that could relate to the economic scenarios, for example, like the COVID-19 outbreak, which had a ripple effect on the economy, and then like other scenarios, of course. So the bank kind of has to monitor the acceptable level of risk to advance to the lender or complete an appropriate due diligence in order to make a provision for the expected credit loss. So the approach taken to maintain this allowance is based on the requirements of certain standards, which are governed by the IFRS board. So IFRS is basically the board which governs the accounting for all financial institutions. And the overall decision at the enterprise level is then taken under the authority of the board and on the basis of quarterly discussions with the CRO and head of the enterprise risk. So all the portfolio of assets at the credit risk, at the credit exposures are periodically then reviewed in accordance with the bank's policies and with the IFRS standards to determine if there has been any significant increase in credit risk. And the results therein are then published in the quarterly reports on the bank's website and then submitted to the OSFI, which is also the governing body for all financial institutions here. So yeah, that's how the analysis is basically done.
Yeah, that's a great high-level explanation of what is risk management and how it is done. Now, can you please dig a little deeper on what is it that you do, which assess this process?
Sure. So like I mentioned, as the bank has quarterly submissions which are to be made, my day typically revolves around ensuring the timely completion of the analysis and preparation of reports. So I work alongside different teams like finance, modeling, economics, to analyze whether the bank's allowance model is capturing the right information and leading to effective credit management. So we follow a very systematic approach to kind of perform the assessments every quarter. So I'd say my everyday job is different, but overall the quarterly process is more or less the same. We follow a set of protocols. I analyze, I prepare reports, I take part in quarterly discussions with the board, and finally prepare the reports, which are then made available for public disclosures and OSFeed or the board submission.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. And then could you elaborate for someone who wants your job? What are the skills which are required to perform this job very well? I mean, I've heard of certifications like FRM in risk management. So is that certification necessary? Do you have it? And what other skills are required for it?
Um, Straight away, no, I don't have any other certifications like FRM or anything. But I believe particularly one should be comfortable with data because you're dealing with highly sensitive data in banks. You're dealing with financial, so you should be really good with, like analysis, like performing analysis and understanding what the data is all about. One should have an eye for detail and is sound with the IFRS guidelines because that is something that you'll be working throughout. So even if you do not have an accounting background or audit background, you can probably just read through it and understand what the banking principles are, and then prepare yourself to appear for the interview. So usually banks prefer to hire people at higher roles with relevant experience since it involves dealing with financial information, right? So and also you make a judgment. So your work is very impactful. So that's the reason why you have to have some kind of technical, skill set. FRM is good to have, but definitely is not a must to excel in the domain. In risk, I believe you keep learning throughout within your role as you work with technical staff. So if you have an additional CFA, FRM, or CIS for that matter, the learning process will definitely expedite for you. But it's not something that should stop you from opting a career in risk.
Sure. So you're saying that these certifications are nice to have, but they're not mandatory. And banks do look for some relevant experience in your past before they hire you. But say, for example, someone wants to switch domains and does not have a financial background or no relevant experience, then what can they do to show the bank that they have some skills or transferable skills required for this job?
Though, so in this job particularly, I'd say I learn about the economy in general because you are doing an analysis, and that analysis is based on the information that is available to everyone, right? So you need to have the information. You need to understand how the models, how the information will affect the models, will affect the banking systems, with the financials, and you should be sound with interpreting the results as well. So even if you don't have financial knowledge, at least you can read about the news and current affairs, for example, and see how the economy is getting impacted by every move like that is happening globally. So yeah, I think that should do the job, and definitely like every role has certain technical requirements as well, right? So just read about those and see if that makes sense to you, and you can obviously discuss in the interview process. And the interviewer understands it's not that they only look for people with a lot of experience. They look for people who want to excel in the same domain. So I think like yeah, like just make a move. Like tell let the interviewer know that you're interested, and then help you like in succeeding. Yeah.
Sure. And we'll discuss the interview process in detail after a few minutes. But before we go to that, I would like to know, because you said earlier you have to work with a lot of data and take those judgment calls. So I'm sure there must be some softwares or analytical tools which you must be using to do your job. So what are these softwares or analytical tools, and how did you learn them?
Yeah, sure. So right from start, so risk management basically is not just it's not just about managing risk, but also about identifying and analyzing the areas of emerging risk as well. And that can happen only if you have the right set of information and data available to you. And there comes the role of technology. So the role of risk management has kind of transformed over the years, and the focus has completely changed from subjectivity or personal opinion or judgment to strategizing, monitoring, or even mitigating expected level of risk. And to do that, I believe that with the help of big data and technology, it has really become possible to integrate all the data points and identify the emerging risks and figure out ways to kind of mitigate them. So the modeling team that I work with and even the risk analytics team. So I do mostly the reporting bit of it. So I work on stats, but the teams that I work with, so they use data tools like Power BI, data visualization, Jira, Cube, SAS again, and use a scenario model to kind of perform the analysis and prepare the reports. And these tools kind of makes the process very easy to monitor the red flags, complete a more accurate risk assessment process, and identify the issues that would otherwise have been dismissed at a bird's eye bird's eye level.
Sure. And
So yeah,
as you said, this is where technology comes into play.
yeah,
It makes your job easier to identify those red flags before the banks lend to a particular lender. All right.
yeah.
So now let's talk about the job interview process. So, how did you get your current job, and what are your tips for resume building, your networking, and the job interview?
Um, right. So this job was a direct application. And even for this direct application, I did make sure that I have my resume, like I have the right information on my resume, um and even I prepared a cover letter and like put in the stuff that is actually required for the job. So I can definitely give my 2 cents for each of those points that you
Sure.
mentioned.
Let's start with the resume, because since you mentioned you got it through a direct application, so your resume must have been awesome.
So I believe there is no perfect resume for that matter because it has to be tailored according to the job that you're applying for, right? Of course, you have to ensure that your contact details are correct so that they could reach out to you at ease. Your work experience should be in car or star format. Or you should respect your reader's time and share only the relevant information on it. So you could use tools like JobScan, etc., to match your resume, to match the keywords with the job description that you're applying for. So apart from these generic tips, I can share something like that might just interest you, which
Sure.
works for me is definitely to be interesting to the interviewer. Don't just
Okay.
share everything to the interviewer, like like in those words. No, just leave a little mystery behind it. Like even you should not cover everything about yourself, but it should be convincing enough to let the interviewer know that you have a story to share in person and they should look forward to it. So let's say
Okay.
even if do not hold excellent academics, just compensate it by showing what extra mile you went to get the experience you want to talk about,
Okay.
right? So I think that really matters. And one more tip I would definitely share is so you do take care of the star and car method, but at the end of it, I also believe that you should also share the learning bit of it.
Okay.
What did you learn through that instance, and that kind of impresses the interviewer is what I believe, because I would also want to hire somebody who wants to constantly evolve. So I can expect my interviewer to like that point in me. And I think that all that you can discuss during the interview process, but on resume at least, like yeah, like things that I mentioned. And yeah, like needless to say, like have no grammatical or spelling mistakes, and do have a summary line on the top, because everybody in your cohort will have more or less the same resume, right? So how you will stand out is by how you're customizing it according to your profile. Make it a story. Like, it should be very consistent. Yeah.
Sure. Those are wonderful tips. And I'm a little intrigued by the mystery part, which you said, that you should leave something for the interview. Don't just put out everything on your resume, leave
Yeah.
something for the interview. For our
Yeah.
listeners who don't know, the STAR format is the situation, task, action, result. So it's very important to highlight the results. And as Richa added an important point, also mention your learning. Like from that result or from that experience, what is it that you learned? So that is something which you can elaborate on your interview as well, because everyone wants somebody who is a constant learner. So fine, those are great tips for the resume building, Richa. Now let's dig into networking. I'm sure you got this job through a direct application, but you must have networked as well for other jobs. So what has your experience with the networking been like?
Sure. So as a prospective MBA graduate, like regardless of your experience or your grades, I believe you know, networking is crucial. It is of so much value, not just because it may land you a job, but it's more of a long-term investment for you. It involves human interaction, and you know that you have to be very deliberate about anything that involves humans, right? So be very strategic, yet open about networking. When you're asking for somebody's time, take the complete onus on you to make the conversation very fruitful, to make it, like beneficial, mutually beneficial. And once you have this in mind, I'm sure, like you would need no further advice, because you would be proactive enough. You would put in all the efforts to know the person. You would put in the MBA lingo. You would understand your value proposition. When it's a course in itself during the MBA, right? So yeah, but couple of tips, like make it a mission, prepare an Excel, note down the people you intend to follow or have a coffee chat with, write the takeaways from all the subsequent conversations, and how that person can help in the future. And by future, I don't mean like, when the job seeking process ends. No, it's like beyond that. So how can the person like be of help to you? If you're seeking a connection on LinkedIn, like write a note to them explaining why you want to connect with them. People do respond. I genuinely believe that people do respond, irrespective of their levels or grades. It's just you have to hold on um, to the conversation. Like you have to build a very meaningful conversation. And lastly, be authentic. Otherwise, you might just bore the other person by sounding like a robot. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's very important, because a lot of people don't think about making it mutually beneficial,
yeah,
and then the conversation is not as fruitful. So that point you made about having that relationship even after you get that job is very, very important, because you need to build long lasting relationships, not just that, okay, I got the job, now I no longer lead you, so it's fine, I can just have you in my LinkedIn contacts and never
yeah.
talk to you again. So don't do that. But can you give some other tips in regards to making that conversation fruitful? Like, what is it that the candidate should keep in mind before they enter that coffee chat?
So it depends what kind of people are you networking with. Like if you have an agenda already in hand in mind, like if you want to network for a job interview, if you're networking with the with the recruiter, or if you're trying to connect with somebody who is offering a particular role, then then in the first message itself, because they might just not have the time to go through everybody's application, so you might just want to in the first message itself jot down why you're fit for that particular role. It's okay. Like just leave a message to them. Keep it short and brief. So I used to attach my resume as well, just in case, if they want to know more about me. I would not want them to take some extra effort and scan through my LinkedIn profile. Instead, it's very easy and convenient to just attach my profile and see if there's a, and most of the times they did respond to me. So that is something which you can try for, like try if at all you want to network with somebody who has a job that interests you. Otherwise, if you want to network with people who you think will add value to in your life by just sharing their opinions or sharing their viewpoints about something, about some work or about something, then just share the curiosity to know about them in advance. Like read through their profile and have an agenda clear in your mind. Why do you want to network with them? Like try to understand it yourself. Like why you would not have all the time in the world to meet everyone, right? So you should be very clear about who you want to meet and how can that person be add value to your life. So research about, like, just ask, contemplate on these points, and then see what all people are available to you, and then like write in the message that like I researched about this, I read through your article and found this part very interesting, and I have my 2 cents. So would you be available for a quick chat, for a quick call, something like that? And that would make the conversation very fruitful. And always, like never forget to follow up after the call. So always, like, even if you're not if even if you don't have an intention to ask for some recommendation or anything, just note down something about them, and then leave a note after the conversation, and then like just keep wishing them, or like share your insights if you work on it, like later on. Just keep maintain the relationship basically. Again, I said, it's human, right? So relationships, it's more about building relationships than just networking for a purpose. So
That is so very important. And like you said, make it easier for the person to refer you. So that point you made about attaching your resume so that the person does not have to go through your
yeah,
LinkedIn profile to see your experience. That is a wonderful tip over there, because that person has your resume and it makes it easier for them to refer you. Just forward it if they find it useful. And then again, leaving a note after having the conversation, you can always thank them for their time and
yes,
mention that, okay, you gave me this advice which I found very beneficial, and thank you so much for that. So that helps to maintain that relationship in the future. So all right, now with the resume and networking out of the way, let us talk about the job interview process. How was your job interview experience and the various stages of job interviews at BMO?
so mine is a more technical kind of a role, I'd say. So I had to go through like a couple of rounds. It was like 5 or 7 rounds, um, so which involved like a couple of technical rounds, HR, like one HR round, one generic, like just profile scanning round, something like that, and rest of the rounds were technical with senior manager, with other team members, with um, and then like with the head of my department as well. So, but I always stick to one point. I think that the job description is the Bible. Like, read through every sentence. I strongly suggest that you should read through every sentence, take out all the key information from it, and see what the recruiter is actually looking for. Recall instances where you have demonstrated those qualities that they are looking for. Don't go overly technical if you are if the recruiter, if the interviewer is an HR, because that person might not understand and just wasting somebody's time by just being overly technical, right? So um, you should understand the interviewer's needs and answer accordingly. Also, you should be prepared to answer anything from everything about your resume, anything that you have mentioned on your resume, because they only know the information that you have shared on it. So just you should be really consistent with it, like consistent with your answers as well. You should not be like, on resume I've mentioned something and you're talking about something else. So that's a very important point to note. And like I mentioned, like you should be prepared to answer anything in a star format, like, or a reverse star format, for that matter. Like, I always stick to the reverse star format. So whenever I'm asked like a situation based question, like I try to answer it in a reverse star format. I give the hook, like I share the results first, and then I explain what the situation was, what task did I finish, and what action did I take to kind of reach demonstrate that result, or like uh, reach out to that conclusion, whatever. And then after that, I again like share my learning bit, which to me is very important. So yeah, so that is something which you can consider, and I'm sure like it will prove to be beneficial for everyone. And it's always good to know that you're constantly growing, like I said, for the recruiters, because yeah, that's what they really want. So whatever information you are sharing with them, they don't want to know everything technical that is related to the job, but they want to know rather how you have progressed through that stage in your life. So that is something which has been a personal observation, could be different for different people, but that worked out for me. So I always like keep it a little generic whenever I like give my answers. And yeah, like one more point, which even like I've heard it from my peers, is like, do not be overconfident. Everybody has their weaknesses, and but a wise man would know like um how to how and when to acknowledge those, and to make their way through it. So
And
yeah,
it's also very important to let the recruiter or the interviewer know that you are working on those weaknesses. It's not just
of
that
course,
you've admitted it,
of course,
that you're doing something to work on it. And you've
yeah,
made wonderful points over there, that because the interviewer knows you through your resume, so you should be able to defend every word which you have written on your resume. And like we talked about earlier, you leave a little mystery part on your resume. So make sure
Yeah.
you talk about that and not about something else. And you
Yeah.
demonstrate your results and what actions you have taken to go through that result. But on that note, for the interview process, was there any case interview which was conducted? Were you given any case or situation which you had to break down? How was that like?
So case interviews were given by the consulting companies while I was interviewing for them. For
But
BMO
not,
particularly,
I'm
but for
sorry.
BMO, no, it
Mhm.
was for BMO, there was no case interview as such, but I was given situational based questions, and then I was asked technical questions, like questions on IFRS guidelines, like I mentioned, because that is something that they are currently um, working with and working on. Sorry, and then like the team members, the other team members um, in my department are qualified enough to kind of do the financial calculations. Like they either hold CFA or like FRM or other certifications, but it is not really required. Like I am an MBA, and they know that for reporting purposes, like they need somebody who is good with communication, who is good with um, preparing reports and um, talking to regulatory bodies, auditors, etc. So it depends where exactly you want to get into.
So what made
Yeah.
you ultimately decide to work for BMO?
So I had offers from consulting companies, and I was very firm at that stage where I want to gain some industry experience at that period of time, because COVID was prevalent and consulting companies did not. I mean, I was not confident that they would retain me for long. Like even what if the economic situation change? And in banks, like you have a lot of job security. So I wanted to like secure my job first. That was my primary concern. And I also wanted to gain some industry experience because I've never worked in industry, so wanted to kind of understand how the um, banking operates here in North America, and because it's the biggest sector, right? So anywhere in the world. So I wanted to gain complete understanding, like work with bankers and see and learn and then see if I can progress in the domain, because it's very easy to get back to consulting or auditing, because I have like experience before, but if I've done my MBA, like I knew it will be challenging, yet it will be fun to kind of know it from the other side of the table.
Yeah, I think that's a very wise decision that you made at that point in time. But you mentioned about the COVID concerns earlier. We are hearing rumors about a recession coming ahead.
Yeah.
We hope that doesn't happen, but has that affected the rating of your clients? Because you do risk analysis, how has that affected the rating of your clients, and what is the scenario which you see in the coming future?
Yeah, sure. So any change in economic scenario, right? Be it COVID-19 outbreak or the Russia-Ukrainian war, or or leading to recession or anything, will have a direct impact on the general allowance balance in banks, or the provisions in the banks, or the credit, or in layman's terms, the provisions that the balance that the banks maintain to safeguard against these kind of risks, right? This in turn leads to the changes in forecast towards credit losses for banks, say an increase in the unemployment percentage, or a drastic decrease in the GDP rate would further bring down the disposable income of Canadians, and hence their health profile will deteriorate. Health profile in the sense that they would not be able to pay off their debts. So that's how the provision will increase, like for banks. So there are a lot of reassessments to be made in banks according to these changed scenarios. For example, there are changes in interest rates or the fluctuating housing prices, for example, all would also affect the affordability of clients. So the banks kind of regularly perform scenario analysis, keeping all cases in consideration, the base case scenario or the upside or downside scenarios, to predict such outcomes and understand what could affect the household budgets, and that because that would in turn affect with Canadians, like purchasing power or like affordability. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds a lot of complex calculations and sounds like really tough. So yeah, kudos to you for doing that. What are the differences you found, Richa, after working for more than a year now here in Canada in the work culture of Canada versus India?
Um, that's a bang on question because that's the reason why I moved to Canada. So the work culture for sure differs because it's like a comparison between apples and oranges. Like I come from India. One is developing country and the other one is at a developing stage. So you definitely cannot compare both the countries. The work culture would different because obviously the standard of living, the relationships with people and the work environment would be very different, right? So I think I am more suited to the Western culture because I can work well in a very time sensitive environment. I can compromise. I don't mind compromising on long breaks to for getting done with my work timely and chill after office hours. I would also refrain from being a part of office gossip gang and rather take part in mental health programs or other training programs in my free time to or like other programs to kind of constantly upskill myself because I do keep I do keep my personal and professional life very very like exceptionally like separate. So I strongly believe that Canada offers all this to me a lot more. So I would definitely give some brownie points to it. And I would not refrain from sharing the most beautiful things, which keeps me extremely happy and peaceful at my work here, is that we don't really follow a hierarchy. You're accountable for your work and there is absolutely no micromanagement. Everyone is respected equally and age never comes in between. For example, in my team, I have my team members, my counterpart um, is working for the same position, is on the same position for years now, and has not opted for promotion yet for his own personal reasons. And people respect that. People respect everybody's choices. And that in turn makes me respect the work culture here even more. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think for the last question on this podcast, if you had to do everything again for your MBA, your job hunt, everything, if you had to do again, what is it that you would do differently?
Okay. So MBA definitely is a huge investment, and I'm a risk professional. So I would definitely love to risk my money and time for something which would give me a high return, right? I believe the application is a very rigorous process in itself, which requires a lot of research, a lot of contemplation on a personal level, and which we usually tend to forget the moment we get the admit letter. We become complacent. We and forget that MBA is rather a personal journey, which has to be enjoyed at every stage. So if I had the chance to redo it, I would make it completely about myself and less about grades, less about friendships, less about visibility in the classroom. I I would like indeed have the competition with myself because I believe MBA schools hire people from varied backgrounds and experiences. So I don't really see a point in comparing with other students, for I believe the learning curve is very unique for everyone. So that is something that I would keep in my mind, like right from the start. And secondly, I would have my focus all clear on my target and or on my long term plan and put in all my efforts and energy in achieving it while keeping the freedom to explore different opportunities as well. So I would use my education and leverage my networking skills to kind of gain more understanding, more experience of working on live projects. I would really enjoy doing that. I would enjoy learning about companies or knowing the Canadian market well, and I think beyond getting good grades and do some extra bit of research on the courses or the projects that I would choose that I choose that I have and see if my understanding is any different and then meet the professor and discuss with them like and not just with a particular course but I would choose all the courses like very deliberately because it's actually like a lot of money. Every course is a lot of money. And yeah, and apart from this, I would not lose out on having fun during the entire MBA journey. I would put myself in challenging environment every now and then, take part in extracurricular activities, make friends, and use all the free resources available. Keep playing, like play more, learn more. That is my funda.
Shadwa, like that's a very insightful answer because I completely agree with you that some students get complacent after they get that MBA admit. And then it's like a rat race inside the MBA classroom. So you're
Um,
competing for grades and you're looking out for different opportunities. But you made a very good point that you have to compete with yourself because everyone has a unique learning curve and you have different opportunities to explore. And what I've realized is that after say 5 years 6 years post your MBA, everyone is at the same level more or less. You have a certain lifestyle, so if you are competing with others, you'll not really enjoy what you wanted to do in the first place.
yeah,
So it's very important to have that in the back of your mind and have your own unique learning and your own unique jobs and opportunities. So yeah, I think on that note, we will end this conversation. Thank you so much, Richa. This was a lot of fun. And I hope it was fun for you as well.
absolutely. Looking forward to more such interviews because I keep following your podcast, Raza.
Thank
And
you. Thank you so much.
yeah,
I hope you will share it with everyone. And I will link your LinkedIn profile in the description. So if anyone wants
yeah,
to get in touch with you regarding networking or the work culture at BMO or anyway, they can get in touch with you. Right?
for sure, for sure.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much.
Richa.